There is a stillness settling into your hands now, a quiet weight you can finally let go of. The day is past. The evening is already cooling, bringing with it a profound and welcome peace. It is the year 1324, in a dimly lit room in the heart of Venice. Thick wool blankets rest softly over an old man, rising and falling with his slow, measured breath. His name is Marco Polo. Once, he was a merchant known across the city for telling marvelous stories that almost no one believed. Now, he is simply a man finding rest at the end of a very long road. The room is warm. His family gathers close by the edge of the straw mattress, their presence a comforting shadow in the gentle candlelight. For decades, the air around him has been filled with questions, with doubts, and with the endless demand to explain the impossible things he has witnessed. But tonight, that quiet ache of not being believed is slowly dissolving into the dark. He no longer needs to convince the world of anything. The truth belongs only to him, and it brings him deep, abiding peace. Through a half-open window, the faint sound of canal water laps steadily against the ancient stone of the city. It is a soft, rhythmic sound, quietly washing away the lingering noise of the day. When the old man closes his heavy eyelids, the walls of the Venetian bedroom begin to gently drift away. His memory moves slowly backward, unspooling through time, leaving the quiet certainty of this bed for the distant shores of his youth. Before the sprawling empires, before the vast deserts and the roof of the world, there was only a boy standing quietly on the damp wooden docks of his home. The journey backward is smooth and effortless. The years peel away like soft silk, revealing a child waiting for ships to return from the sea. The year is 1254, and the city of Venice is a forest of wooden masts and carved stone rising beautifully from the pale green sea. The salt air settles gently over the narrow streets, mingling with the rich, heavy scents of cinnamon and clove drifting from the merchant warehouses. Young Marco is born into this world of water and trade, a place where the tide dictates the rhythm of the day. The canals breathe with the tide. Men move quietly along the docks, carrying bundles of silk and crates of raw wool. He watches the gulls circle lazily overhead. The water is a constant companion. It laps softly against the foundations of his home, a steady heartbeat that hums beneath the floorboards as he sleeps. Venice is a gateway to the east, and the Polo family has long been a part of this endless exchange. But for all the wealth moving through the harbor, the most defining presence in young Marco's early life is an absence. His father, Niccolo, and his uncle Maffeo are merchants of great ambition, men who look past the familiar ports of the Mediterranean and cast their gaze toward the distant horizons of Asia. They leave Venice before Marco can even form a memory of his father's face. They are far away. They sail on a merchant galley, seeking new markets and deeper trade routes, fading into the long, quiet distance. The boy grows up knowing his father only as a name spoken in the evening, a shadow cast by the stories of returning sailors. He looks out over the water, while the men of the family navigate the vastness of the world. A gentle sadness touches the Polo household in Venice. When Marco is still quite young, his mother passes away, leaving the world as quietly as a ship slipping out of the harbor at dawn. Her memory becomes a soft, cherished thing, held close but rarely disturbing the peaceful surface of the days. The rhythm of his childhood is unbroken. He is taken in by his aunt and uncle, who raise him in a home filled with the steady, reassuring routines of domestic life. The hearth is always warm. The rooms smell faintly of dried herbs and the damp, comforting scent of the lagoon. He is loved and he is safe, surrounded by the extended embrace of a quiet family waiting for their men to return. In the quiet hours of the early morning, a thick mist often rolls in from the Adriatic Sea. It settles softly over the bridges and the narrow, winding pathways, softening the sharp edges of the stone buildings. Young Marco loves to walk through the damp streets while the world is still half asleep. The fog wraps around him like a soft cloak. He listens to the muffled sounds of the awakening city, the distant tolling of a church bell, the gentle splash of an oar slicing through the water, the quiet voices of fishermen. Venice in the mist feels like a city floating between the sky and the sea. He walks slowly. There is no urgency, only the steady, calming presence of the fog sliding past the ancient doorways. As the years slowly pass, the boy is shaped by the practical demands of his family's trade. Marco spends his days learning the careful art of commerce. He sits in dimly lit rooms. The warm glow of a tallow candle illuminates pages of ledgers and accounts. He learns to calculate weights and measures, tracing the elegant curves of numbers with steady hands. The ink dries slowly on the parchment. He studies the maps of the known world, running his fingertips over the rough vellum, following the drawn lines of coasts and borders. He learns the foreign currencies that clink softly in the leather pouches of the marketplace, and he learns to understand the scattered phrases of languages spoken by the captains who arrive from across the sea. He is a careful student. Every piece of knowledge is a tool, slowly polished and put away in his mind for the day it will be needed. He handles scraps of raw silk, learning to feel the difference in quality just by the friction of the threads against his fingertips. He learns how to smell pepper and distinguish the damp rot of a bad hold from the sharp, clean spice of a perfect harvest. The world comes to him in fragments. These fragments arrive in the holds of ships, and he learns to assemble them into a quiet understanding of places he has never been. But the lessons that capture his imagination most are the ones not written in any ledger. In the evenings, Marco wanders down to the busy docks, blending softly into the background. He listens to the rough voices of sailors who have returned from the far edges of the Black Sea. They speak of caravan routes that stretch endlessly into dry deserts. Kings live in tents of white felt. They describe the heavy smell of unfamiliar spices burning in braziers and the soft chime of bells tied to pack animals. He sits very still. He absorbs every word, storing them away alongside his father's name. It is a strange childhood, anchored entirely in a city he knows intimately, yet constantly reaching outward toward a father wandering somewhere in the vast, unmapped east. When the sun finally dips below the horizon, painting the Venetian sky in deep shades of indigo and violet, the boy returns to his room. The house is quiet. It is wrapped in the comforting dampness of the evening air. He lies down on his bed, pulling the woven blankets up to his shoulders. Through his small window, he can see the dark surface of the canal, catching the reflection of a neighbor's lantern. The light wavers on the moving water. It glows with a warm, amber hue, stretching and breaking with each gentle ripple. He watches the light dance slowly on the surface. The sound of the water lapping against the stone walls of the house begins to lull him. It is a slow rhythm. He closes his eyes, imagining the ship sailing far away beneath a canopy of stars. The lantern light sways softly in his mind. The water rises, and the water falls. The creak of the distant docks merges with the steady, quiet rhythm of his own breathing. He wonders, as he does every night, where his father might be sleeping at this very moment under what strange and distant sky. But the thought carries no worry, only a gentle curiosity that slowly fades into the approaching edges of sleep. The lantern light trembles on the dark water. The salt breeze whispers through the open shutter. The world outside is vast and entirely unknowable, but in this room there is only the soft warmth of the blankets and the long, slow passage of the night. The year 1269 arrives in Venice with the familiar chill of winter settling softly over the lagoon. Marco is now 15 years old, a quiet and observant young man who knows the narrow streets and wide canals of his city perfectly. He has grown tall in the years since his father and uncle sailed away, his childhood stretching out behind him like the gentle wake of a passing boat. The rhythm of his days is steady. He works with the family ledgers and walks the docks in the morning mist. He has learned to live with the empty space where his father should be, filling it gradually with the comforting routines of his aunt's household. He waits patiently. And then, on a day that begins much like any other, a merchant galley drops its heavy iron anchor in the deep water of the harbor. Two men disembark onto the wooden docks, moving with the slow, deliberate steps of travelers who have crossed unimaginable distances. They wear garments that look incredibly strange against the familiar backdrop of Venetian merchants. Their cloaks are woven from thick, foreign wool, and their faces are deeply lined by the harsh sun of distant deserts. They are weary. They carry heavy wooden chests that smell faintly of camphor, dried earth, and spices that do not grow anywhere near the Mediterranean Sea. They walk quietly through the damp streets toward the Polo household, their boots scraping softly against the ancient paving stones. When Marco first stands before his father Niccolo, there is a quiet moment of profound hesitation. It is a tender, uncertain reunion, suspended for a few seconds in the warm air of the entryway. The man before him is a stranger, a figure pulled from his oldest dreams and made softly, remarkably real. Niccolo reaches out, and Marco feels the unfamiliar shape of his father's hand. It is rough. The skin is calloused from years holding the leather reins of horses, and thick with the memory of 1,000 cold nights. When they embrace, Marco breathes in the scent of his father's heavy coat. It does not smell of the sea, but instead carries the aroma of dry wind, aged leather, and sweet, burning incense. In the weeks that follow, the Polo household is slowly transformed by the presence of the two brothers. The quiet evenings are filled with the low, steady murmur of their voices, blending with the crackle of the hearth. Marco sits by the warm light of the fire, watching the amber glow dance across his father's face as the men tell the stories of their journey. They speak of lands that sound entirely like a dream, resting comfortably in the shadows of the room. They describe a journey that took them deep into the heart of Asia, tracing the ancient, winding paths of the Silk Road until they reach the court of the most powerful ruler on earth. He listens closely. Niccolo and Maffeo tell the family of the Mongol court, a place of sweeping tents and unyielding, quiet power. They speak of Kublai Khan, a leader whose empire stretches further than any map in Venice could possibly show. The Khan, they explain gently, was fascinated by these two travelers from a world he had never seen. He had asked them countless questions about their laws, their rulers, and their faith, listening intently to their answers. And when it was time for the brothers to leave, the Khan had given them a golden tablet of safe conduct and a very specific request. They were to return to Europe, speak to the Pope, and bring back learned men in holy oil to his court. They made a promise. For Marco, these stories are more than just the echoes of a distant adventure. They are the missing pieces of his father's life, slowly laid out on the wooden table between them, like a map gently unrolling. He watches how Niccolo handles the strange objects he has brought back from his travels. There are pieces of raw silk, smooth and remarkably cool to the touch. There are small carved stones that catch the lamplight in unfamiliar ways, glowing softly in the dim room. Marco runs his hands over these treasures, feeling the heavy reality of the world his father has known. The distance between them begins to quietly close. They share a quiet, growing respect, built slowly in the warm glow of the fireplace. The brothers had intended to deliver their message to the Pope and return to the East as quickly as the winds would allow, but the world of men is often slow, and the papal seat remains vacant for a very long time. The long process of electing a new pope keeps the brothers waiting patiently in Venice. Month after month slips quietly by, turning into a year, and then gently into another. For Marco, this delay is a quiet, unexpected blessing. It gives him time to truly know his father, beyond the stories and the strange objects. They walk together along the canals, watching the mist rise softly off the water. They speak softly. As Marco approaches his 17th year, a silent understanding begins to take root in the peaceful household. The brothers must eventually honor their heavy promise to the great Khan. They must leave Venice once again and face the long, arduous road back toward the rising sun. And this time, they will not go alone, for the boy has grown into a man ready for the journey. There is no single dramatic moment of decision to mark this change. It is a slow, quiet realization formed over many gentle conversations in the fading light of the afternoon. Marco will join them. He will leave the only world he has ever known and step into the vast, unmapped spaces of his father's stories. The preparations for the long journey are made with careful, deliberate focus over many quiet weeks. Heavy wooden chests are packed with durable linen, thick leather, and the few familiar comforts they can carry. Marco folds his garments slowly, feeling the soft weave of the fabric beneath his fingers as he places them in his trunk. He looks around his small room, memorizing the way the golden light falls across the wooden floorboards in the late afternoon. He knows the shape of the cracked plaster on the wall, and the familiar sound of the neighbor's heavy door swinging shut. He is leaving all of this behind. There's a profound, quiet weight to this impending departure. He is young, and the road stretching out ahead is entirely unknown. He does not know if he will return in a few years, or if the damp air of Venice will simply become a memory he carries with him into the desert. But as he stands with his father on the edge of the docks, feeling the cool evening breeze against his face, the fear is very still. It is replaced by a deep, steady calm that anchors him to the moment. The water laps softly against the stone. The ships creak gently at their moorings. Marco takes a slow, deep breath, letting the scent of the salt air fill his lungs one last time. In the year 1271, the damp, familiar air of the Venetian lagoon is gently replaced by the steady, salt-heavy breeze of the open Mediterranean Sea. The heavy wooden merchant galley cuts slowly to the deep blue water, carrying 17-year-old Marco away from the only world he has ever truly known. He stands quietly near the ship's railing, watching the pale stone buildings of his childhood soften and gradually disappear into the distant horizon. He is traveling with his father and his uncle, joining a long, quiet tradition of men who look eastward toward the rising sun. The journey ahead of them is vast and entirely unwritten, a blank page waiting to be filled with the quiet ink of experience. It is a peaceful departure. There is no fear or hesitation in the young man, only the gentle, rhythmic sway of the wooden deck beneath his leather boots. The endless stretch of water pulls them forward, carrying them gently toward the ancient port of Acre, where the air is already thick with the scent of warm dust and unfamiliar spices. When they finally leave the ship and begin their long journey overland through the Holy Land, the entire rhythm of Marco's world changes. The constant, restless motion of the open sea is replaced by the slow, deliberate, and grounded pace of the merchant caravan. He learns to sit comfortably in the saddle, as the steady rocking of the horses and camels becomes the new metronome of his days. The landscape around them gradually transforms as they move inland, stripping away the lush, damp greens of the coast. It reveals the stark, quiet beauty of the sun-baked earth. The air grows warmer and much drier. Fine, pale dust settles softly on his skin and his clothes, a daily, tangible reminder of the many miles passing slowly beneath them. They travel through ancient, silent valleys and over rocky hillsides, following paths that have been worn smooth by the passage of countless generations. The sun is a heavy, comforting weight on his shoulders as he rides, warming his bones through the thick layers of his traveling clothes. As they move deeper into the heart of Persia, the days stretch out into a long, uninterrupted meditation of forward movement. Marco discovers very quickly that long-distance travel is rarely a matter of thrilling adventure, but rather an exercise in profound, enduring patience. They move very slowly. The caravan does not rush for anything, for the vast deserts and the rising mountains do not respect those who hurry. Marco watches the heavy, padded feet of the camels fall softly onto the dry earth, one after another, in a continuous, hypnotic rhythm. The long, swaying line of pack animals and men stretches out across the horizon, moving like a slow, quiet river through the wide, empty landscape. He breathes in the rich scent of aged leather, the dry, sweeping wind, and the earthy smell of the pack animals. The world becomes remarkably simple. It is measured only by the steady placing of one foot in front of the other, mile after slow mile, under a sky that seems to grow larger with every passing day. The slow, swaying motion of the camels becomes a kind of quiet lullaby, a steady rocking that eases the mind into a state of calm observation. Each evening, as the harsh heat of the afternoon slowly begins to fade into a gentle warmth, the caravan seeks the quiet safety of a caravanserai. These heavy, walled inns rise like solitary fortresses from the empty plains, offering shelter, water, and rest to those who navigate the ancient trade routes. As the sun dips low toward the horizon, a distant melodic call to prayer echoes softly across the cooling landscape. It settles gently over the weary travelers. The heavy wooden gates of the caravanserai close securely for the night, shutting out the vastness of the darkening plains. Inside the wide courtyard, the air is filled with the low, peaceful murmur of foreign languages and the comforting smell of wood smoke. The animals are carefully untethered and relieved of their heavy burdens, settling down into the soft dust with long, tired sighs. Water is drawn from deep stone wells, splashing softly into leather buckets, a soothing melody that washes away the fatigue of the long, sunlit hours. Marco walks quietly among the resting merchants, a silent observer taking in every new detail of this vast, unfolding world. He finds himself entirely fascinated by the ordinary things, the small, quiet differences that make this land so entirely unlike the damp alleys of Venice. He tastes sweet, heavy melons grown in the hidden oasis towns, and breaks unfamiliar, flat bread baked over open, crackling fires. He watches how the nomadic people weave their heavy wool tents, their hands moving with the practiced, beautiful ease of countless generations. He is not looking for danger or glory on this road. He is simply watching. He absorbs the shape and texture of the world with the careful, quiet attention of a merchant's son. He notices the different, respectful ways men greet one another in the evening, the various silver coins that change hands in the fading light, and the distinct, intricate patterns woven into their saddlebags. He listens to the cadence of Persian and Arabic spoken quietly around the fires, letting the unfamiliar syllables wash over him like a gentle, musical stream. He remembers everything, folding these quiet observations away in his mind like precious silk. Night in the Persian highlands falls with a profound and beautiful grace, painting the wide sky in deep shades of violet and charcoal. The lingering heat of the day is gently pulled away, replaced by a cool, clean breeze that sweeps down from the distant, unseen mountains. Small fires dot the courtyard of the caravanserai, casting a warm, amber glow on the tired faces of the resting men. Marco sits peacefully wrapped in the thick wool cloak, listening to the soft crackle of the flames and the quiet, rhythmic chewing of the resting camels. The sky above them is impossibly wide and clear. It is thick with stars, burning with a bright, steady clarity that he has never seen before in the hazy air of the lagoon. He looks up into the endless darkness. As the camp slowly falls silent, the long, rhythmic journey of the day begins to echo softly in Marco's tired muscles. He lies down on his woven sleeping mat, pulling the warm, heavy cloak up to his chin to ward off the chill of the desert evening. The earth beneath him is firm and grounding, holding the lingering, comforting warmth of the afternoon sun deep within the soil. He closes his heavy eyes and still feels the gentle, swaying motion of the caravan, a phantom rocking that gently lulls his limbs. The scattered sounds of the courtyard gradually fade into a low, comforting hum in his ears. He breathes slowly. The air is dry and cool, carrying the faint, sweet scent of burning cedar and the gentle presence of resting animals. Tomorrow, the sun will rise, and the caravan will begin its slow, steady walk once more. But for tonight, there is only the quiet warmth of the fire and the deep, unbroken peace of sleep. The ancient paths leading eastward slowly begin to rise, carrying the small caravan away from the sun-baked plains and up into the vast, quiet shadows of the mountains. The sweeping heat of the desert gradually fades behind them, replaced by a cool, clean wind sweeping down from the snow-capped peaks. Marco pulls his thick wool cloak closer. He breathes in the crisp, cold air. It is a sharp, refreshing change from the heavy dust, filling his lungs with the clear scent of pine and bare stone. The rhythmic sway of camels is replaced by the careful steps of sure-footed mountain ponies, picking their way along ancient trails winding higher into the sky. The world below them slowly shrinks into a tapestry of distant colors. They are climbing toward a place Marco will call the roof of the world, a high, desolate plateau where the air is thin and the silence is absolute. As they cross the Great Pamir Plateau, the landscape takes on a stark, breathtaking beauty. It is a place of profound stillness, where nothing grows and no birds sing to break the deep, resting quiet. The snow lies heavily on the jagged peaks, catching the pale light of the high-altitude sun and casting long, cool shadows across the rocky ground. Up here, every movement takes more effort, and the travelers learn to move with a slow, deliberate grace, matching the vastness of the terrain. The silence of the high mountains is not empty, but rather it feels full and heavy, wrapping around the caravan like a thick, comforting blanket. There is no rush in this frozen world. The mountains have stood for millennia, demanding only that those who cross them do so with patience and a quiet, abiding respect. The sky is a deep, endless blue. It is during this long, cold crossing that young Marco falls ill. The constant motion of the journey and the freezing air finally ask too much of his tired body, bringing a heavy, overwhelming fatigue settling deep into his bones. There is no fear or panic, only the gentle, undeniable realization that he cannot go any further. His body simply demands rest. Recognizing his weakness, his father and uncle halt their progress, turning the caravan toward the sheltered valleys of Badakhshan. They do not view this delay as a failure, but as a necessary pause, a quiet interlude requested by the mountains themselves. They find a safe, warm dwelling in a small mountain village, surrounded by towering peaks standing like silent guardians against the wind. Marco is laid upon a soft bed of layered wool, close to the comforting warmth of a stone hearth. He closes his eyes. For the better part of a year, this small firelit room becomes Marco's entire world. The vast, stretching miles of the Silk Road are gently put away, replaced by the simple, immediate comforts of rest and recovery. The fire crackles softly in the hearth, casting a warm, dancing light against the rough stone walls. The smell of burning juniper wood fills the air with a sweet, resinous perfume that soothes his aching chest. Time loses its strict, demanding shape in the high valleys. The days blur together in a peaceful continuum of sleeping, waking to sip warm broth, and drifting back into the quiet, healing embrace of slumber. He is entirely safe. The snow falls heavily outside the wooden door, blanketing the mountain passes and sealing the travelers comfortably inside their sanctuary. There is nowhere they must be, allowing the quiet passing of time to knit the young man's strength back together. The enforced stillness becomes a profound and unexpected gift. Marco spends countless hours simply watching the firelight play across the woven patterns of his heavy blankets. He listens to the wind whispering softly around the eaves of the stone house, a lullaby reinforcing the warmth and security of the room. He breathes in slowly. The pure air of the mountains acts as a gentle medicine, clearing his mind and bringing a deep, resonant peace to his resting body. He does not worry about the great Khan waiting far away, nor does he fret over the lost months of travel. The journey has been temporarily suspended, hung like a quiet lantern in the back of his mind. All that matters is the steady rise and fall of his own chest beneath the furs. The room is very peaceful. As his fever breaks and his strength begins to return, Marco starts to observe the quiet life of the village around him. From his window, he watches the local herdsmen tending their flocks of thick-coated sheep, their movements slow and unhurried in the winter cold. Even in recovery, the merchant's son is quietly cataloging the world, storing away these small, peaceful details. His father brings him pieces of lapis lazuli, the bright azure stone mined in the nearby mountains, and Marco holds the cool, smooth rocks in his hands, admiring their deep blue. The stones feel grounding, a tangible piece of the earth anchoring him as he slowly swims back toward health. He rests his head on the pillow. The long, snowy winter gradually begins to soften, yielding to the gentle warmth of the approaching spring. The heavy drifts of white snow slowly recede from the lower valleys, revealing the pale green shoots of hardy mountain grass. The frozen streams begin to thaw, filling the quiet air with the musical sound of running water. Marco's body mirrors this slow, inevitable thaw. He takes his first steps outside the stone house, leaning gently on the wooden doorframe, feeling the crisp, warming air against his face. The sun feels remarkably good. It warms his skin, chasing away the last lingering shadows of his illness. He breathes deeply, taking in the scent of damp earth and melting snow, feeling the revitalized strength taking root in his legs. The mountains have sheltered him, offering a year of quiet refuge. Years later, Marco will remember the profound, unbroken quiet of the Badakhshan Valley. He will recall the deep, restorative sleep beneath the heavy skins, and the feeling of being entirely removed from the demands of the world. This long pause teaches him a patience he will carry with him across the rest of the vast Asian continent. He learns that sometimes the journey requires you to stop completely, to surrender to the stillness. The fire burns softly. Finally, the mountain passes are clear of snow, and the caravan safely resumes its eastward march. Marco says a quiet farewell to the stone house. He feels a deep, enduring gratitude for the shelter of the high valleys. He is completely healed, rested, and ready. The journey resumes its slow walking rhythm. The mountains stand tall. The air is incredibly still. The sun climbs gently into the pale sky. The caravan moves forward in a slow, peaceful line. The rhythmic sway of his mount lulls him into a state of deep rest. The memory of the warm fire lingers in his mind. He feels the steady beat of his own heart. The world is very quiet. He breathes in the fresh mountain air. He exhales slowly. The gentle rocking continues. The path stretches onward. His eyes are heavy. The quiet deepens. All is well. The high, rocky paths of the mountains eventually give way to a sprawling, flat horizon. Marco and the small caravan descend slowly from the frozen roof of the world, leaving the snow and the stone far behind them. They move steadily eastward, stepping down into a landscape that seems to stretch endlessly into the hazy distance. The ground beneath the camels' heavy hooves changes from hard rock to fine, shifting sand. They have reached the edges of the Great Gobi Desert, a vast ocean of dry earth that will take them a full month to successfully cross. The air here is entirely different. It is thin and dry, carrying a faint, dusty warmth that settles gently over their heavy cloaks. There's the low sound of the wind, then silence, and then the wind once more. Crossing this massive desert is an exercise in quiet surrender, a slow-moving dream where the world is stripped down to its most basic elements. There is only the pale sand below, and the massive, unblinking sky stretching endlessly above. The days blend together in a calm repetition of footsteps. Marco rides with his head bowed slightly against the bright glare of the sun, listening to the soft, rhythmic crunch of the sand yielding beneath the weight of the caravan. It is a monotonous, beautiful rhythm that gently empties the mind of all complicated thoughts. The landscape rarely changes, offering no landmarks or sudden distractions to break the long, stretching hours of the afternoon. He breathes in the dry, warm air. The vastness of the desert is not frightening to him, but rather it feels like a heavy, comforting blanket draped over the sleeping earth. When the sun finally sets, the desert undergoes a magnificent and quiet transformation. The intense heat of the day lifts away, replaced by a profound, sweeping coolness that rises steadily from the cooling sand. The sky deepens into an impossibly dark shade of indigo, revealing a thick, breathtaking canopy of stars that seem close enough to brush with a fingertip. Marco sits by the small, carefully tended campfire, watching the embers glow bright orange against the absolute black of the desert night. The silence of the Gobi after dark is heavy and complete, broken only by the settling of the tired camels and the occasional pop of burning scrub brush. It is a profound stillness. He pulls his thick wool blanket tightly around his shoulders, feeling incredibly small, but deeply safe beneath the vast, shining roof of the universe. In the quiet hours of the night, the older merchants share ancient, hushed stories about this lonely stretch of the world. They speak of desert spirits that wander the dunes in the dark, and strange sounds that drift through the empty air to confuse tired travelers. Marco listens peacefully to these tales, understanding them not as true dangers, but as the natural folklore of a place so incredibly empty. Sometimes, as he lies comfortably on his woven mat, he thinks he can hear the faint, melodic chiming of bells or the soft murmur of distant voices floating over the dunes, but it is only the sound of the shifting sand, pushed gently by the cooling night air. It is the steady song of the desert. He listens to the wind, then the silence, and then the wind. The sound is deeply lulling, a natural lullaby that sweeps away any lingering anxiety and prepares the body for rest. As the weeks slowly pass, the crossing of the Great Desert takes on a deeply dreamlike quality. The physical exertion of the journey fades entirely into the background, replaced by a gentle, floating sensation that comes from moving through a landscape that never seems to end. Time is measured only by the rising and the setting of the sun, and the slow, steady emptying of their leather water skins. Marco feels a strange, abiding peace in this vast emptiness. He learns to sit perfectly still in his saddle, letting his body sway naturally with the rocking motion of the animal beneath him. There is nothing to do but move forward. The busy world outside of this slow-moving line of men and animals simply ceases to exist, leaving only the quiet present moment. Finally, after many long, quiet weeks of sand and wind, the harsh lines of the desert begin to gently soften. The endless sea of pale dunes gradually gives way to small patches of dry, tough scrub, and then, very slowly, to the faint, hopeful green of actual grass. The air grows slightly heavier, carrying the distant, sweet promise of water and damp earth. They have reached the very edges of the Mongolian steppes, stepping quietly out of the wasteland and into the vast, rolling grasslands of the great empire. The change is so gradual that Marco almost does not notice it at first. The ground beneath them simply becomes firmer. The sound of the camel's footsteps changes from a soft crunch to a steady, rhythmic thud against the packed earth, signaling the end of the long crossing. That evening, the caravan makes camp on a wide, grassy plain, and the relief among the weary travelers is quiet but deeply felt. The animals graze peacefully on the fresh grass, their long, arduous journey across the barren sand finally complete. Marco lies down on the soft, giving earth feeling the cool moisture of the ground seeping gently through his woven sleeping mat. The dry, whistling wind of the deep desert has been replaced by a soft, fragrant breeze that rustles gently through the long blades of grass. He takes a deep, slow breath, filling his lungs with the sweet scent of the living steppe. The long crossing is over. He closes his heavy eyes, letting the gentle murmur of the resting camp wash over him. The stars watch silently from above. He sinks deeply into the soft grass, completely at peace and entirely ready for sleep. The year is 1275, and the long, arduous journey that began in the damp alleys of Venice finally comes to a gentle pause. 3.5 years of crossing vast seas, freezing mountains, and endless deserts bring Marco, his father, and his uncle to the magnificent summer palace of Shanggu. The world here is entirely different from the harsh, windswept steppes they have just crossed. It is a place of profound, deliberate beauty, carefully carved from the wild landscape to serve as a quiet retreat for the most powerful ruler on earth. Marco rides his tired horse slowly toward the great marble walls, his eyes wide with a quiet, settling astonishment. He sees sprawling, immaculate gardens enclosed by painted stone. Lush green meadows stretch out beneath the warm sun, dotted with gentle streams and carefully tended groves of trees. The air is sweet. It carries the faint floral scent of blooming gardens and the distant, soothing sound of water flowing over polished stones. The sheer scale of the palace does not overwhelm the young merchant. It simply invites him to look closer, to take in the intricate details of a world completely remade. As the three Venetians are guided through the massive gates and into the heart of the royal compound, a new rhythm of life begins to wash over them. The solitary wind of the deep desert is replaced by the harmonious, low murmur of a vast and highly organized court. Marco walks softly across courtyards paved with smooth, sun-warmed stone, noticing the brilliant colors painted onto the heavy wooden beams above his head. He watches courtiers and guards moving with a practiced, graceful dignity, their long silk robes brushing softly against the ground. The fabric is beautiful. He can see the intricate embroidery catching the afternoon light, threads of gold and silver weaving through deep shades of crimson and azure. From somewhere deep within the sprawling palace, the faint, melodic notes of stringed instruments drift lazily through the warm air, mingling with the gentle chime of small bronze bells. The heavy, earthy smell of the caravan is soon replaced by the rich, comforting aromas of the imperial kitchens. He breathes in the scent of sweet incense burning slowly in brass braziers, wrapping around the savory fragrance of roasted meat and warm, spiced wine. The air feels rich and full. In the evenings, the great dining halls of the palace are filled with a quiet, magnificent abundance. Marco is invited to sit among the high nobles and visiting dignitaries, watching as a procession of servants brings forth dishes he has never imagined. There are delicate pastries filled with sweet honey and crushed nuts, and large silver platters holding perfectly roasted meats glazed with rich, savory sauces. He tastes wines made from rice, warmed slightly and poured from elegant porcelain jugs that feel impossibly delicate in his hands. The flavors are complex and deeply comforting, a profound contrast to the hard, dry rations of the desert crossing. He eats slowly. He savors the rich textures and the gentle warmth spreading through his body. The low hum of conversation in a dozen different languages surrounds him, forming a soft tapestry of sound that makes him feel pleasantly invisible. He is merely a guest, a quiet observer taking in the grand spectacle of the Khan's endless hospitality. They are eventually led into a grand, sweeping hall to finally meet the man whose name has echoed through Marco's life since he was a young boy. The chamber is vast and beautifully proportioned, lined with intricately carved pillars and illuminated by the soft, steady glow of countless oil lamps. The light is warm and amber, casting long, peaceful shadows that dance gently against the gilded walls. At the far end of the room sits Kublai Khan, the ruler of an empire so immense that it borders the frozen forests of the north and the warm oceans of the south. He is a man of great authority, but as Marco looks upon him, he sees only a quiet, grounded presence. The Khan does not rule with loud, chaotic demands, but with a deep, watchful intelligence that seems to calmly take in every detail of the room. He is waiting for them. The reunion between the great Khan and the two older Polo brothers is marked by a profound, mutual respect. Niccolo and Maffeo approach with gentle reverence, presenting the letters from the Pope and the holy oil they have safely carried across the vast expanse of Asia. The Khan receives these gifts with genuine, thoughtful pleasure, listening closely as the brothers describe the long years of their journey. His voice, when he speaks, is steady and resonant, a deep baritone that fills the quiet room without ever needing to be raised. And then, his sharp, observant eyes drift toward the young man standing quietly behind the older merchants. The Khan asks Niccolo who this boy might be. Niccolo answers with a simple, swelling pride that this is his son and the Khan's loyal servant. Marco bows his head respectfully. The Khan welcomes him with a warm, measured smile, accepting the young Venetian into his court with an easy, graceful generosity. There is no tension in this massive, imposing room, only the profound relief of a heavy promise finally fulfilled. In the days and weeks that follow, Marco begins to find a quiet, unexpected home within the sprawling complex of the Summer Palace. He possesses a deep, natural curiosity coupled with a remarkable ability to quietly observe and remember the details of the world around him. The Khan recognizes this quality almost immediately, seeing in the merchant's son a pair of fresh, intelligent eyes that can look upon his vast empire clearly and without prejudice. He encourages Marco to learn the complex languages of the realm, and the young man applies himself with the same careful focus he once used to study ledgers in Venice. He learns the gentle rise and fall of new syllables. He practices the unfamiliar characters until they flow smoothly from his brush. He sits in quiet corners of the Imperial Library, tracing the lines of ancient maps, expanding his understanding of a world growing larger with every passing day. The Khan favors him with the quiet, steady trust of a ruler who values honesty above all things. When evening falls over the summer palace at Chengdu, the great courtyards are bathed in the soft, golden light of hundreds of paper lanterns. Marco loves to walk through the quiet gardens during these twilight hours, listening to the gentle rustle of bamboo leaves shifting in the evening breeze. The heat of the day gently lifts away, leaving a cool, fragrant air smelling softly of damp earth and blooming jasmine. He stands on the edge of a still, reflective pool, watching the bright orange shapes of koi fish swimming lazily beneath the dark, mirrored surface. The water is perfectly calm. He thinks back to the narrow canals of his childhood and the damp, salty air of the Venetian lagoon. Venice feels like a very distant dream now. A small, faded painting hung quietly in the back of his mind. He does not miss it with an aching sorrow, but remembers it with a gentle, settled fondness. He is exactly where he is meant to be. The sheer exhaustion of the last 3.5 years finally begins to leave his body, melting away into the deep, luxurious comforts of the imperial court. He returns to his private quarters, a beautiful, airy room adorned with woven reed mats and thick, incredibly soft blankets made of pure silk. He lies down upon his low bed, feeling the smooth, cool fabric against his tired skin. The bed is deeply comfortable. Through the open wooden screen of his window, he can hear the distant, muffled sound of a night watchman softly striking a wooden block to mark the passing of the hour. It is a slow, steady rhythm, much like the heartbeat of the great palace itself. The warm glow of a single oil lamp flickers gently in the corner of the room, casting a soft, golden circle of light pushing back the darkness. Marco breathes in deeply, letting the rich scent of cedarwood and faint incense fill his lungs. The endless motion of the caravan has finally been replaced by the profound, abiding stillness of this beautiful room. He closes his heavy eyes, safe within the heart of an empire, and drifts quietly into a long, dreamless sleep. The changing of the seasons at the great summer palace slowly becomes a familiar, comforting rhythm. The crisp, cool autumns gently give way to the deep, silent snows of winter, and Marco Polo does not return to the damp, salty canals of Venice. Instead, he steps quietly into the vast, sweeping currents of the Mongol Empire. For 17 long years, he serves the Great Khan. It is a profound, rich chapter of his life, built not on grand conquests or dramatic battles, but on the steady, careful accumulation of trust. The Khan values the young Venetian for his remarkably clear eyes and his honest, unvarnished tongue. Marco learns the complex, delicate etiquette of the court. He learns the deep, respectful bows and the careful, measured way one must speak to a ruler who holds the entire known world in his hands. He is a foreigner, yet he gradually becomes something far more valuable and rare. He becomes a quiet, faithful witness. Recognizing his unique ability to observe without prejudice, the Khan sends Marco out across the sprawling provinces of the empire as an imperial emissary. He is trusted to report back on the distant, unseen corners of the realm. Marco spends months and sometimes years at a time riding the long, winding roads that connect the ancient, bustling cities. He feels the familiar, rhythmic sway of the wooden saddle beneath him, a steady rocking motion that becomes the constant background of his adult life. The fine, pale dust of countless trails settles lightly onto his heavy riding coat, weaving the very soil of Asia into the fabric of his clothes. He travels through deep, shadowed forests where the air smells heavily of wet pine, dark moss, and damp earth. He crosses wide, rushing rivers on heavy wooden ferries, listening to the thick, muddy water churn softly against the flat hull. The vast landscape of Asia unrolls before him like a massive, beautifully painted silk scroll. He moves steadily through it. Along the way, he gathers the small, quiet details of everyday life, holding them carefully in his mind like precious stones. He sits in the round, felt tents of nomadic herdsmen, sharing wooden bowls of warm, fermented mare's milk, while the evening wind hums softly outside. He learns the gentle, ancient customs of the diverse people he meets, understanding when to speak and when to simply remain silent. He watches patient artisans carving pale, smooth jade, their hands moving in slow, practiced rhythms that have been passed down through countless generations. He notices the different ways men fold their hands in prayer, the different ways they build their clay homes, and the distinct, beautiful songs they sing as they harvest the golden fields of grain. He does not judge these unfamiliar ways against the narrow standards of Europe. He merely observes them with a deep, abiding respect. His mind is an open vessel. Returning to the Khan's court after a long, arduous journey always brings a profound, heavy sense of duty fulfilled. Marco arrives at the high palace gates with his clothes smelling faintly of distant rain, aged leather, and sweet campfire smoke. His muscles carry the dull, satisfying ache of 1,000 miles ridden over rough terrain. He stands quietly before the Khan in the warm, lamplit halls, speaking softly and clearly of what he has seen. He tells of abundant harvests and devastating floods, of the fairness of distant governors, and the quiet, shifting moods of the common people. The Khan listens with that same deep, unwavering attention, his dark eyes fixed on the Venetian, nodding slowly as the young man speaks. It is a quiet, powerful exchange of respect. There is a deep, resonant comfort in being useful, in knowing that your words are entirely trusted by a man who listens to very few. As the long years slip quietly by, the young boy who once stood nervously on the wooden docks of Venice fades entirely into memory. Marco grows into a mature, seasoned man, his face gently weathered by the harsh, bright sun of the eastern steppes and the freezing, biting winds of the high mountain passes. He begins to know the great paved roads of the empire far better than he knows the narrow, winding alleys of his childhood home. He speaks the flowing languages of the East with a smooth, natural ease, the foreign syllables rolling comfortably off his tongue. He is completely comfortable in his own skin, anchored deeply by the steady, purposeful work he does for the court. The days on the road are long, but they are full of quiet meaning. The passage of time is remarkably gentle. It flows past him like a slow, deep river, carrying him further away from the life he once knew. There's a deep, quiet rhythm to traveling on horseback that slowly aligns the beating of a man's heart with the steady gait of the animal beneath him. Marco learns to sleep comfortably, sitting upright in the saddle during the long, monotonous stretches of open plain, trusting his mount to safely follow the worn path. He wakes to the gentle warmth of the morning sun rising over the distant horizon, painting the scattered clouds in soft shades of peach and lavender. The world wakes up slowly around him. He hears the morning calls of strange, brightly colored birds hidden in the tall grass and feels the cool dew dampening the hem of his heavy cloak. These are the quiet, private moments that belong entirely to him. They are peaceful spaces tucked gently between the grand duties of the empire, allowing his mind to wander softly without any urgent destination. His journeys also take him south, toward the warm, humid borders of the empire, where the air grows thick with the sweet, heavy scent of blooming jungle flowers and rich, damp soil. He rides slowly through lush green valleys where massive elephants move quietly through the dense trees, their great gray bodies swaying gently in the dappled shadows. He visits southern provinces where the fertile earth yields dark, fragrant spices that would cost a fortune in the stone markets of Europe. Yet here, they are simply left out on woven mats to dry peacefully in the warm afternoon sun. He watches it all with the same calm, steady, and unhurried gaze. He writes careful notes in his small, leather-bound ledgers, counting the passing days, recording the long distances, and holding the vast, beautiful complexity of the world in the quiet space of his mind. But no matter how far he travels, there is always the gentle, welcoming promise of rest at the end of the day. The great empire is dotted with quiet relay stations, waiting patiently to shelter the Khan's weary messengers. After many long hours on the road, Marco's horse naturally slows its pace as the heavy wooden gates of a resting station finally appear in the fading evening light. The thick doors open smoothly, offering a quiet, secure sanctuary from the long, dusty road. Marco dismounts slowly, his legs stiff, feeling the solid, unmoving earth beneath his heavy leather boots. The tired animal is gently led away to be brushed and fed sweet grain, and Marco is handed a simple clay bowl of warm, clear broth. He sits down on a low wooden bench, letting the deep, heavy exhaustion slowly wash over him. It is a good, clean tiredness, born of hard work and safe arrival. The evening air gradually begins to cool, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and resting horses. The stars slowly emerge over the quiet, thatched roof of the station, burning with a soft, steady light. He breathes in the deep stillness of the courtyard, entirely content with the life he has built. The night falls softly. The long roads of the empire eventually lead Marco southward, carrying him into regions where the dry dust of the steppes is gently replaced by the soft, heavy dampness of water. He arrives at the great city of Hangzhou, a sprawling metropolis built entirely upon a vast network of rivers and lakes. It is a city of canals. As he stands on the arch of a massive stone bridge, he looks down at the dark, moving water and is quietly reminded of home. But this is not the Venice of his childhood. Everything here exists on a scale that his European mind can barely comprehend. The waterways stretch out endlessly, lined with thousands upon thousands of beautiful, sweeping rooftops that catch the soft light of the hazy sun. The scale is staggering. He walks slowly through the bustling, vibrant marketplaces, his merchant's eye carefully taking in the profound wealth laid out before him. He watches men trade vast quantities of heavy silk, fragrant spices, and delicate porcelain with a quiet, practiced ease. He counts the ships. He measures the length of the wide, paved streets in his mind, instinctively cataloging the immense prosperity of the realm. But the most remarkable thing he witnesses is not the heavy gold or the shining silver. It is the simple, quiet rustle of paper. In this magnificent empire, the Khan has decreed that money should be made from the dark inner bark of the mulberry tree. Marco watches in quiet astonishment as merchants exchange these light, beautifully stamped pieces of paper for the heaviest, most valuable goods in the market. The paper changes hands smoothly. It is a system of absolute trust, backed by the immense, unseen power of the emperor, and it functions with a peaceful, flowing grace. He holds one of these delicate notes in his own hand, feeling the soft texture of the pressed bark between his fingers. He imagines trying to explain this lightweight wealth to the hardened coin merchants of Venice, and a soft, knowing smile touches his lips. They would never believe him. The empire is bound together not just by water and paper, but by an incredibly vast and efficient network of messengers. Marco observes the imperial postal system functioning like a steady, unbroken heartbeat across the immense continent. Riders carry urgent messages from one quiet relay station to the next, moving quickly but seamlessly through the changing landscapes. The roads are safe. They wear belts hung with small silver bells that chime softly in the distance, warning the next station of their gentle approach. The melodic ringing carries clearly on the cool evening wind, a comforting sound that tells the travelers the Khan's protection extends even to the most remote valleys. He listens to the bells. As the days gently fold into weeks, he explores the grand public bathhouses of the city, where thousands of people gather to wash in the warm, mineral-rich waters. The air inside is thick and incredibly warm. Steam rises softly toward the high vaulted ceilings, carrying the clean, sweet scent of cedar and scented oils. The sheer number of people living peacefully together in this one city is greater than anything Europe has ever known. He walks through the misty rooms. He feels the damp heat settling comfortably into his tired muscles, letting the quiet murmur of 100 low conversations wash over him like a gentle, rolling wave. He spends long, peaceful evenings walking the gentle curbs of those thousands of stone bridges. The arches reflect perfectly in the dark, still water below, creating the quiet illusion of endless glowing circles. Small wooden boats glide silently beneath him, their lanterns casting warm, flickering light that dances softly on the gentle ripples. The city does not sleep heavily. It rests with a gentle, breathing rhythm, full of quiet life that continues long after the sun has set. He watches families eating together on the wide decks of their floating homes, the scent of steamed rice and garlic drifting pleasantly on the evening breeze. He walks on. Every corner of this massive city reveals another small, perfect detail to be carefully stored away in his growing memory. Marco writes everything down in his small leather books, his quill scratching softly against the thick parchment in the quiet hours of the night. The ink dries slowly. He records the incredible abundance of the markets, the strange, dark rocks that burn like wood to heat the homes, and the massive, beautifully painted ships that sail the deep rivers. He is a careful, meticulous student of this vast world. He does not exaggerate, for the simple reality is far more magnificent than anything a man could invent. He gently blows on the wet ink, watching the words settle into a permanent record of his time in the East. He knows the weight of these truths. There is a profound sense of wonder in his daily observations, but it is always softened by a quiet thread of nostalgia pulling gently at his heart. He stands by the wide canals of Hangzhou in the fading evening light, listening to the water lap against the ancient stone. It sounds just like home, yet he knows with a deep, quiet certainty that the things he is seeing will sound like utter madness to the people he left behind. How could he adequately describe a city with 12,000 stone bridges? He cannot, How could he make them understand the massive, organized piece of an empire that spans the entire Eastern world? He gently accepts that some truths are simply too large to be easily carried across the sea. He breathes in the warm, humid air, content to just be a quiet witness to these impossibly beautiful things. The year 1292 arrives quietly, bringing with it a profound and inevitable shift in the winds of Marco's life. After 17 years of faithful, unbroken service, the time finally comes for the Venetians to ask the aging Khan for permission to return to the sea. The emperor is deeply reluctant to let them go, holding a quiet, enduring fondness for the men who have served him so well. But a final, delicate duty presents itself, offering a graceful path toward home. They are entrusted with the safe passage of a young Mongol princess, chosen to sail across the vast southern oceans to marry a ruler in distant Persia. Marco accepts this heavy responsibility with the calm, measured grace of a man who knows the vast shape of the world. They board a fleet of massive, multi-masted wooden junks, leaving the shores of the great empire behind them. The ships are enormous. He stands on the high wooden deck as the anchor is slowly raised, feeling the familiar damp sting of salt spray against his weathered face. It has been a very long time since he tasted the ocean. As they sail south toward the equatorial waters, the landscape of the world changes once again. The air grows incredibly warm and thick, carrying the heavy scent of tropical rain and distant, unnamed islands. The journey is governed entirely by the slow, rolling breath of the monsoon winds, dictating their speed and their resting places. Marco falls easily into the deep, hypnotic rhythm of the ship, letting his body sway naturally with the rising and falling of the grand wooden hull. The heavy timber of the ship creaks softly in the night, a rhythmic, groaning sound that becomes a familiar lullaby in the dark. He watches the massive woven bamboo sails catch the wind, pulling them steadily through the deep, jade-colored water. The sea is vast and unhurried. He spends countless hours leaning against the smooth wooden rail, watching the silver shapes of flying fish skim effortlessly over the crests of the waves. The long days at sea are marked by a profound, stretching emptiness, where the sky and the water meet in a perfect, unbroken circle. The horizon never seems to change. The crossing of the great Indian Ocean is not a simple or easy voyage, but rather a slow, grueling test of patience and quiet endurance. The journey stretches out for more than 2 years, delayed by unyielding weather, shifting currents, and the natural rhythms of the changing seasons. They wait for months in quiet, humid ports for the winds to turn in their favor. Along this endless expanse of water, a quiet sorrow gently settles over the fleet. Many of the crew and the royal entourage do not survive the long, demanding months at sea, their lives fading softly away into the vast, indifferent ocean. Marco records these losses with a gentle, heavy gravity, softening the tragedy with the reflective distance of time. There is no panic on the rolling decks, only the solemn, quiet reality of a very long journey taking its natural toll. He stands watch under the unfamiliar, shining constellations of the southern hemisphere, feeling the weight of his duty holding him steady in the dark. The stars are a comforting guide. He ensures the princess is kept safe and insulated from the quiet despair, carrying the fading light of the expedition forward with steady hands. The isolation of the open water provides Marco with long, uninterrupted hours to reflect on the immense life he has lived. He listens to the gentle, repetitive slap of the waves against the hull, thinking of the high, frozen mountain passes and the endless, silent deserts he has crossed. All of it feels like a magnificent, slowly fading dream, separated from him now by thousands of miles of deep blue water. He remembers the heavy scent of burning incense in the Khan's court, and the soft rustle of silk garments sweeping across polished marble floors. These memories do not bring sadness, only a quiet, profound gratitude for having been a witness to such wonders. He sits quietly on the deck as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the scattered clouds in bruised shades of violet and deep, burning gold. The warmth of the day slowly leaves the wooden planks, replaced by the cool, salty breath of the evening sea. He wraps his cloak tightly around his shoulders. He closes his eyes and listens to the wind singing softly through the complex rigging above him. The ship rolls gently, carrying him forward into the coming night. After many months of navigating the endless rolling blue, the dry, rugged coastline of Persia finally appears through the coastal haze. The surviving ships drop their heavy iron anchors into the calm, welcoming waters of the harbor of Hormuz. Marco, his father, and his uncle have successfully completed their final task for the Great Khan, delivering the young princess safely to her new life. A deep, settling relief washes over the travel-worn men as they step back onto the solid, unmoving earth. The long, heavy obligation that has bound them to the east is gently lifted from their shoulders. They are finally free. They say a quiet, respectful farewell to the princess, wishing her a peaceful life in this new land before turning their faces permanently toward the west. They rest in the warm coastal city for many weeks, allowing their sea-weary legs to completely remember the steady, unyielding feel of the ground. The scent of Persian spices drifting through the markets feels comfortably familiar, a gentle bridge between the profound strangeness of the East and the life they once knew. As they gather their remaining strength for the final overland journey toward the Mediterranean, Marco looks toward the western horizon. He knows that beyond the deserts and the familiar, bustling ports of the Levant, the damp, misty canals of Venice are quietly waiting. He has been gone for more than 20 years, walking the furthest edges of the known world. And now, the long circle of his life is finally gently bending toward home. The year is 1295, and the familiar, damp chill of the Venetian lagoon finally wraps around the three travelers once more. 24 long years have slowly passed since a young Marco stood on these same wooden docks and watched his home fade into the distance. Now, a man of 41, he steps off a heavy merchant vessel and onto the ancient, uneven paving stones of his childhood. The city has not changed. The water still laps gently against the foundations of the great stone houses, and the distant resonant tolling of the church bells echoes softly through the morning mist. He listens to the bells, but Marco has changed entirely, his eyes carrying the vast, quiet weight of a world his countrymen cannot even begin to imagine. When the Polos finally make their way through the winding, narrow alleys toward their family estate, they are not greeted with a joyous, sweeping celebration. They've traveled for so long through so many harsh and beautiful lands that they no longer look like the prosperous Venetian merchants who left decades ago. Their clothes are heavy, patched, and tailored in the strange, practical styles of the distant East. Their faces are deeply tanned by the desert sun, and when they speak, their native tongue feels slow and slightly unfamiliar in their mouths. They look like weary vagabonds. The family and servants living in the Polo household look upon these strange men with quiet confusion, entirely unable to recognize the ghosts standing quietly in their courtyard. It is a gentle, almost humorous moment, a story that will be told fondly around the family table for many years to come. To prove their true identities, the three weary travelers invite their relatives to a quiet gathering in the main hall of the house. As the fire crackles softly in the hearth, they take up heavy iron knives and begin to gently cut open the thick seams of their worn, travel-stained coats. As the rough fabric slowly parts, a breathtaking cascade of wealth spills quietly onto the wooden table. There are shining rubies, deep blue sapphires, and perfectly clear diamonds that catch the warm amber glow of the candlelight. The room falls completely silent. It is a quiet, irrefutable proof of their long journey, and slowly, the bewildered family begins to pull the men into a warm, deeply emotional embrace. But as the days gently unfold into weeks, Marco discovers a strange and melancholy truth about returning home after such a profound journey. As he sits by the hearth and answers the eager questions of his neighbors, he realizes that the words he speaks sound entirely like madness to them. He tells them of the millions of people in the Khan's great cities, the black stones that burn to heat homes, and the paper money that moves an entire empire. They listen politely. They nod with soft, indulgent smiles, treating his earnest descriptions as the wild, colorful inventions of a man who has simply been away for too long. There is no anger in Marco as he realizes this quiet truth, only a gentle, accepting sorrow. He understands that the damp, enclosed world of the Venetian lagoon simply cannot hold the vast, sweeping scale of the Asian steppes. He stops trying to convince them of every detail, choosing instead to let his magnificent memories rest safely within his own mind. He walks the narrow stone bridges of his city in the quiet evenings, listening to the soft splash of oars in the dark water. The language slowly returns to him. He is a wealthy man, respected and comfortably settled back into the quiet rhythms of the merchant life, but a part of him will always be wandering the endless, starlit roads of the East. In the year 1298, the quiet peace of Marco's return is briefly interrupted by the ancient, echoing rivalries of the Italian city-states. A naval conflict between Venice and Genoa leaves the seasoned merchant as a prisoner of war, but the walls of his Genoese prison do not hold the harshness of despair or the heavy weight of suffering. They simply form a quiet stone room, offering a long, unexpected pause in a life that has already crossed the vastness of the world. The cell is comfortably small. It is lit by a single narrow window that lets in a pale, dusty rectangle of afternoon sunlight, warming the uneven floor. Inside this quiet space, Marco meets a fellow captive, a writer of romances named Rustichello da Pisa. They sit together in the dim light. The days of their captivity stretch out into long, empty hours, waiting patiently to be filled. And so, Marco begins to gently unpack the heavy, magnificent trunks of his memory. He speaks softly, letting the unfamiliar names and distant, beautiful landscapes fill the narrow stone cell. Rustichello listens with a quiet, growing astonishment, his hand moving steadily across the rough parchment. The scratch of the quill is a deeply comforting sound. It is a slow, rhythmic whisper against the paper, capturing the vast sweep of the Asian steppes and the deep, jade-colored waters of the eastern seas. The ink darkens slowly as it dries in the cool air. Marco tells the other man about the paper money, the great palaces, and the millions of people living peacefully under the Khan's rule. The solid stone walls around them gently fall away. This quiet captivity becomes a profound and hidden blessing, a forced stillness that finally gives the traveler time to permanently record his magnificent life. Without this stone room, the heavy memories might have simply faded away into the damp Venetian air, lost entirely to time. Instead, the two men work peacefully together in the hushed, intimate space of their confinement. One voice softly tells a very long story, and the other hand carefully catches it in dark ink. A single candle burns down slowly on the small wooden table between them. The flame wavers gently, casting soft, dancing shadows that look almost like distant, snow-capped mountains against the gray stone. Marco breathes in the familiar scent of damp parchment and warm wax. He is a prisoner, but his mind is entirely free, wandering the endless, starlit roads of his youth. The quill continues its quiet, steady work into the approaching night. The heavy stone walls of the Genoese prison eventually open, releasing Marco back into the damp, familiar air of Venice. The final decades of his life are remarkably quiet, a peaceful epilogue to a story that stretched across the entire known world. He marries a Venetian woman, and the large stone house is soon filled with the bright, comforting voices of his 3 daughters. He returns to the steady, rhythmic life of a merchant. He walks the ancient docks, handles bolts of familiar cloth, and counts the passing of the seasons with a gentle, settled heart. But his book, the long story recorded in that dim cell, begins to travel far beyond the lagoon. It passes from hand to hand across Europe, quietly fascinating those who read it, even as they firmly believe it is only a beautiful, colorful dream. He knows they doubt him. He simply lets them. The years gently wear down the strength of the great traveler, slowly returning him to the warm, candlelit room where our journey began. It is the year 1324. The thick wool blankets rest softly over his chest, rising and falling with his slow, measured breath. The journey is finally coming to an end. Friends and family gather closely around the edge of his bed, their faces painted in soft, wavering amber by the dying light of the candle. They lean in close, their voices hushed and tender. They gently urge the old man to finally confess, to quietly admit that the grand cities, the millions of people, and the paper money were merely the inventions of a tired mind. They offer him the chance to leave the world with a clear, unburdened soul. Marco opens his heavy eyelids one last time, looking at the familiar faces of the people he loves. There is no anger in his tired eyes, and no urgent need to prove his legacy. There is only a profound, abiding peace. He speaks very softly, his voice barely more than a whisper in the quiet room. He tells them, simply and without triumph, that he has not told half of what he had seen. It is a gentle release of the truth. He does not need them to believe him anymore, for the vast, starlit deserts and the great, sweeping palaces belong entirely to him. The memory of the high mountains wraps around him like a heavy, comforting cloak. The room grows very quiet. The candle burns low in its brass holder, casting a final soft glow against the ancient plaster walls. The damp, salt air from the lagoon drifts softly through the half-open window, bringing the familiar, resting scent of the sea. The endless rhythm of his traveling life finally slows down to a single, quiet point in the dark. The long miles of the Silk Road, the rolling waves of the Indian Ocean, and the deep snows of the Pamir Plateau all slowly fade away. There's nowhere left to go, and nothing left to carry. His breathing slows into a gentle, unbroken rhythm, matching the soft lapping of the canal water outside. His hand rests still on the blanket now, and somewhere far off, a bell across the water is fading into silence.